think that approach as it relates to career, I think is going to be the name of the game.
Welcome to What Are You Doing Right Now, the best on-the-spot podcast in the world dedicated to tech, e-commerce, and of course, recurring revenue. I'm excited to be joined today by Adam Levinter. Adam,
How are you?
yes, I found him. Take 10 seconds and tell the audience who you are, about yourself, what you do.
This is hard, actually. Entrepreneur, business owner, author, podcaster. I think that's the easiest way to sum it up.
You were at the very first Sub Summit. You're one of my greatest business friends. You've always been great in the community and so supportive. You've been to a majority of the Sub Summits. Your brain works so well in the subscription, recurring revenue, membership space. I love, following all your social posts. I love chatting with you as much as I possibly can, spending time with you because you're so ingrained in it. You do a lot of consulting in the space. So here's what, looking at this crystal ball in the future, tell me what you're seeing happening right now. What do you see unfolding in this space so we can get a little bit of business talk in here today?
You know what's funny? I just did a post today, which you can easily argue the other side, but I couldn't help but continue to think about entrepreneurship versus employment and which one is more or less risky. And I continue to come back to this idea that being an entrepreneur going forward is going to be less risky than being an employee. And I've kind of always felt this way ever since I started my first business back in 2010, but I've basically paid myself for 15 years. I'm a product of the corporate world. Like, I took a very traditional path. I went to university, I got an MBA, and then I got hired by a consultancy and then went into corporate strategy for 3 years, almost 4 years before I got laid off. And I remember the level of anxiety and stress that I felt constantly, day in and day out, working for a corporation. And I still can't shake that feeling of what it might be like to go back and work for a big corporation. And the feelings that I get inside make my skin crawl. It takes me back to that place.
Wow.
I was playing politics, where I was working 80 plus hours a week, where I resented a lot of the people that I worked for, feeling like I have no control over my destiny, over what I'm creating, over the value that I'm bringing to the company. This idea that I could be laid off at any time kept me up at night. I have this conversation with different people from both sides, and I think it's still an interesting conversation. What is the more secure, less risky path going forward? Is it to be a master of your domain and own your career choices and your career path and be, ostensibly a business owner? Or should you just work for a company, work for someone else?
I think it's always in the personality. Look, I had a business partner in my marketing agency for 15 years. We started it in high school. We were good. We weren't great friends. We became friends over time through business. In that 15th year, I ended up finally approaching him saying, I don't know if you doesn't feel like you want to do this anymore. I'd like to buy you out. It was heartbreaking at first for both of us. Especially for him because he didn't see it coming. But eventually at the end of the day, he realized I don't like the pressure and the stress of running a business and being an entrepreneur. And he's worked at Duo Security and now Cisco ever since then. Is very happy with his life. He likes that stability, didn't like the unpredictability of running a business and stuff like that. But on the flip side of that, I always say to my wife, you watch Arrested Development? I feel like you do.
Yes.
I always say to my wife, there's always money in the banana stand. And what I mean by that is no matter what, we can figure out a way. If this fails over here, I'll go over here and do something else,
Right.
Hustle Legos on the side. I have pinball machines in the basement, whatever it is.
Right.
And so as an entrepreneur, you can always figure it out, and you are in direct control of your destiny. So your point here in this statement is, are you saying entrepreneurship over time is going to become more popular because you see that emerging?
I think it's diversification that's going to become more popular. So I think it's really, really risky to be singularly focused. For example, if you have 10, 15 years as a marketer and you're taking that path within a company and you go from, say, middle management to senior director to VP to SVP of marketing to CMO, you're quite singularly focused. And if there's a rainy day event and you get laid off, I think it's really difficult to all of a sudden try and reinvent yourself if you've been 15 years in marketing for, say, a big retailer versus, you're in marketing, but you also have diversified. And yeah, you have this other, coaching business on the side. Maybe you're creating something, in the media space, like you're a podcaster. If you start to diversify your potential revenue streams, I think that's smart. And I think that makes sense going forward. I think that is going to become more normal. And I think companies are actually going to have to find a way to just accept that their employees are going to do other things on the side. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be loyal to the company or that they've got one foot out the door. I think that's sort of the default state of the employer. It's like, ooh, you have a side hustle. That means you're not loyal and we can't trust you. I think that mindset's pretty dangerous going forward. I don't think that's going to be acceptable.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to get over as an employer. I know Chris and I have this conversation all the time because in my agency, I know sometimes my employees do freelance, nights and weekends. Lyle builds websites on the side. Tyler will do design work on the side. They'll still have that. And then here at Sub Summit too, I know, Liz during the holidays will do Shipt to pick up a couple extra bucks to pay for Christmas. Louis will DoorDash sometimes on nights and weekends. And I've had this conversation with Chris. He's like, well, we should just let's maybe do we need to raise salaries? Do we need to ask them not to do those things? It's like sometimes those are outlets to give them brain breaks away from it. They might want to just earn a couple more bucks and they see the opportunity. If that's how they choose to spend their free time, that's how they choose to spend their free time. We can't control that. But I think there's some positivity to it in terms of just giving them maybe less concern about what happens if I do lose my job over here. I still have things to fall back on. So maybe it does create a sense of relief too. I could see it going both ways. Chris' argument is we want them just mentally dedicated to everything we're doing. And I don't disagree with that as well, but pros and cons to each.
I think also sometimes you have to think of it like an investment strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use in the US, you call it 401k, we call it an RSP here. You wouldn't take $500,000 and dump it into Microsoft and Microsoft only, or maybe you would, but generally speaking, you probably diversify your investments.
Right.
And I think that approach as it relates to career going forward, especially with the speed of how things are changing today and in the modern world with AI and everything else, I think diversification is going to be the name of the game.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And I think AI opens up so many more opportunities. I mean, there's all this chatter and concern about it's going to take away all these jobs. By the way, have you been watching Figure Robot and what Brett Adcock is doing over there with Helix this week? Oh my God. It's a dream come true in terms of be able to have a robot in your house someday that will fold your laundry, cook your dinner, do your dishes. I actually think it's going to open up a whole nother ecosystem of opportunity. I think the humanoid robot becomes the iPhone of the future. You'll be able to say okay, I want to create programs for the humanoid robot to make sushi and do that really well. I think so. We're worried about AI and robotics taking away jobs, but I think it, just like iPhone and internet, everything else did, it creates opportunity in different areas. You now become the creator versus the doer of the things, and you're the one that's teaching it how to do stuff, and you're building the apps for it. And so these whole new ecosystems, even with AI, whole new ecosystems are about to open up, creating the best prompts and the best GPTs for different stuff like that. So, and that's where, coming back to your original point, that's where those different side hustles can come in is, on your nights and weekends, use your brain power to create, cool tools and utilities that can not only maybe be used by your day job, but also can go out there and be sold to other people.
What do you tell your kids as they think about school and post-secondary and career path? Have they sort of asked about any of that yet, or are they still too young?
We're getting there with the conversations. And here's my philosophy is paying attention in school, getting good grades, finding discipline, creating good habits is important right now. If you feel like right now you don't want to go to college, I understand that, but it doesn't mean you can start to slack off in school. In high school, I crushed it. I got really good grades. I did extracurriculars. I cared about it. When I got to college, I sucked. My overall GPA at Michigan State was 2.4. I was terrible at college, but I went there, I got the degree, and I finished. Allie wants to be a teacher, so she needs to focus on getting good grades so she can go to Michigan State and become a teacher and do those things. Morgan, I see more entrepreneurial. And what I've said to Morgan, these are my twin daughters that are 14 for the audience's benefit. You know them, Adam. Morgan, I've said, no matter what, you need to at least do 2 years of college and take whatever classes you want when you get there. But that's your time to grow up. That's your time to build relationships. That's your time to practice, real world discipline, things like that. And after 2 years, if you're hey, I don't really see much value in this, I don't want to do this, here's what I want to do instead. Let's just talk about it. I'll support you in the best way that I can, but I'm not going to force them to go down a path that doesn't feel right. But that's because that's me and my experience as an entrepreneur. I'm curious to get your take on this.
I don't know, we're not having the conversation yet because the kids are a little bit younger. So my eldest is 12. This is a pretty interesting topic as well. And we probably don't have time to go down this rabbit hole, but like the whole idea of like the value of today's curriculum and how relevant it is for kids going forward, I think is a real important question.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents are asking themselves, like, is this like this curriculum, what they're teaching kids today in school, is it even going to be valuable or relevant when they're starting to make career choices?
That's what I find teachers right now shutting down the use of AI. And it's angering me because it's like, this is the tool. The teachers need to embrace it and teach you how to properly use it. Don't say don't use AI for helping you write papers or do different things. Teach you how to understand the concepts of it and how to make it better and understand what AI is putting out.
So, do you remember in math class when we were growing up that teachers would frown upon the use of a calculator?
Yeah, TI-85s, like you put your TI-85 away. It's like, but this is going to be here forever now.
Exactly. I sort of feel like we're at the same point with AI to your point. And funny, last night, my daughter, Loa, who's 12, had some assignment. She's like, Dad, I need to get on your ChatGPT account. I said, for what? She's like, no, I've done the whole assignment myself, but I need ChatGPT to generate this image that I have that's going to complement the project that I have to hand in tomorrow. And ChatGPT can generate this image for me, but school locks it down, to your point. Like, she doesn't have access to it.
All right, Adam, we've sufficiently spent way more time than we're supposed to on this podcast, but you and I know we could talk forever.
We can keep going.
All right, Adam, have a great rest of your week. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Be well. Bye.